Welcome to part 2 of the Battle Walk on East Cemetery Hill with licensed battlefield guide Bobby Housch. If you were with us last week, you heard Bobby describe the Union lines and their preparation for the coming battle. Tonight he's going to cover the arrival of Confederate troops, their placement, and follow the battle through to day 2 of the Battle of Gettysburg. If you missed any of our earlier programs or the part 1 of this session, you're welcome to watch them on YouTube. We have recorded all of our programs and they are stored on YouTube. You just log into YouTube, type in Adams County Historical Society, and you'll have at your fingertips probably a year's worth of programming to watch. We hope you like the diversity of programs. We're trying to cover every era of Adams County history, the civilian as well as the battle experiences during the Battle of Gettysburg. We want to cover from the World Wars back through the Revolutionary War and everything in between. We hope our programs are as diverse as our collection. We have over 1 million artifacts, documents, photographs in storage, and with our new building underway, we hope to display everything in our new museum and education center in the coming years. We hope you like our programming, and we encourage you to help us continue the programming and to build the new museum. There's a donate button at the bottom of your screen. Please feel free to make a donation. Any size would be much appreciated. Now let me introduce you to our speaker if you have not met him before. He is licensed battlefield guide Bobby Housch. Bobby is a native of Chattanooga, Tennessee, but gladly he has moved to Gettysburg with his interest in history, and he is a full-time history teacher in the Southwestern District, which is near Hanover, Pennsylvania. Bobby, in his spare time, which I doubt is very little, volunteers with the Adams County Historical Society, so he is a good friend to this organization. We hope you will enjoy the program tonight as Bobby continues the story of the action on East Cemetery Hill. So I will turn it over to your host.
So thank you for coming back to part 2 of this presentation on East Cemetery Hill. In part 1, we mostly concentrated on Union positioning. Now we're going to talk about Confederates and how they're going to be attacking East Cemetery Hill. This is licensed battlefield guide John Archer standing near High Street, pointing towards the water tank on top of East Cemetery Hill. This is the elementary school building. Over there across the street, it's a building no longer here, which was part of the Gettysburg Middle School. So Jubal Early's division is supposed to be in this area east of the Baltimore Pike, but they're missing a couple of brigades. There's supposed to be 4 brigades in the division. Hayes, Louisiana Brigade was among the buildings here on High Street. They have about 1,229 men. Again, here's the German Reformed Church. There are going to be skirmishers in the area. Confederates could hear Union artillerymen loudly working on their earthworks as we get towards evening of July 1st. Avery's North Carolina Brigade was to the left or east of Hayes' Brigade, stretching out here to the Culp Farm. And here's Batchelder map showing you Hayes, Louisiana Brigade right here. And then you're going to have Avery's North Carolina Brigade right here. And there's the Culp Farm. Gordon's Brigade is actually not here. They have been by the railroad tracks near York Street, and later on they go far to the Confederate left or the United States right, and they are not going to be here to support the attack. During the morning of July 2nd, before daylight, this is a key thing, before daylight, while it's still dark, Jubal Early is going to move Hayes, Louisiana Brigade from these buildings on High Street right here, down here in front of this elementary building, in this low ground where the parking lot now is, a place called Winebrenner's Run. So they sneak them down here into Winebrenner's Run early in the morning. And they sneak them down there because Union soldiers, whose skirmishers have been pushed back to the battle line here where now the water tanks are now located, do not know that a whole brigade has now moved into Weinbrenner's Run and is hiding here. The few people that the Union see, they think they're just part of the skirmish line that had originally been there. And Weinbrenner's Run, which I've outlined here in blue, goes from the Weinbrenner house over here, past and through the William Culp Farm area right over there. So mostly this area is what we're going to be talking about, where these soldiers are going to be hiding. It's now covered by a parking lot. The elementary school is on the left, the middle school is on the right, and there are drains in the parking lot. The Weinbrenner house would be behind me when I took the picture. You can follow these drains along through the parking lot to give you an idea of the approximate location of Weinbrenner's Run. When daylight came, the Confederates are very worried. This is daylight on July 2nd. They could see Cemetery Hill crowned with fortifications. Jubal Early, for some reason, believes there's supposed to be an early morning attack. Even though we know that no attack orders have been given, he has thought they're going to be given, and he wants his men to get out of the buildings on High Street and move down here into this open ground, so when it's time for them to attack, they can quickly cross the ground going towards East Cemetery Hill. And this is from that parking lot where Weinbrenner's Run is located. This would be where the 5th and 6th Louisiana were located. And they'd be looking here towards East Cemetery Hill. There's a water tank in between the trees right there. So again, here's the 5th and 6th Louisiana. 5th Louisiana has about 180 men. 6th Louisiana has about 213 men. And they're hugging the ground behind a low ridge here, which only partially protected them from enemy fire. I believe the ridge was right over here. This is Lefevre Street. And here, they've actually left part of Weinbrenner Run open a little bit. See the drain going through here and down through here. And before they built the road and graded everything, you would have had more of a ridge over here for these Confederates that are facing from left to right to be able to hide behind. There's going to be, though, 45 Louisiana soldiers killed by Federal skirmish fire in this area along Weinbrenner Run. I don't know how many are wounded, but 45 of them are killed here in Weinbrenner's Run. 9th Louisiana is going to be in this area down here. Again, you can see the water tank up there on East Cemetery Hill as we keep moving to the east here through the parking lots. Part of the Confederate plan on July 2nd was for Ewell's troops to create a diversion up here by moving his soldiers around in a threatening manner. And while he's over here saying, hey, look at me, Longstreet's guys are supposed to march down like this and attack from the south and roll up what they thought was then the United States battle line along Cemetery Ridge. So Ewell had his men active here in the morning of July 2nd, but as we know, there was not an attack plan in place. And when you do get orders about when you're going to be attacked, Ewell immediately begins to prepare his men for the attack later on that day. Ewell's plan is to have one division, Johnson's division, which has about 6,400 men over here, attack Culp's Hill like this. And then you're going to have two divisions after that attack begins. You're going to have Early's division attacking East Cemetery Hill like this, and Rhodes' division is going to attack the west side of Cemetery Hill like this, because again, you have a salient, and you always attack a salient from two sides. Now, Rhodes' division is up here in the buildings in the town, and they do not move out towards Cemetery Hill like Early's division had done over here on the right. So they are going to have to march out of town from right to left, get in this open ground out around those Pickett's charge fields, and then start swinging around like this towards the west side of Cemetery Hill. But they are very late in doing this. They have not moved at all after Hayes's guys and Avery's guys are down here to our right. Culp's Hill attack is supposed to occur first, and then Jubal Early's men are supposed to attack towards East Cemetery Hill. Then Rhodes' guys are supposed to be coming. Now, Early does not have all the 5,500 men he's supposed to be attacking with. He is missing two of his four brigades. But if successful, These attacks are going to push the Union soldiers off the hill, and Union soldiers are supposed to lose control of the Baltimore Pike and the Tawny Town Road, and the Confederates are supposed to win the Battle of Gettysburg. Confederates in this area can only wait for Longstreet's guns on the south end of the battlefield to open before they can do anything. They're hot. They do not have any shade. They expected that attack early in the morning. So they're going to be in the open down here in this area, waiting in the sun from 4:30 a.m. to about 7 o'clock p.m. That's about 15 hours that they're in that ditch pretty much along Weinbrenner's Run. As we get farther away from the Union lines and east along the Confederate lines, the German Reformed Church, the Confederates near it are going to have an easier time that afternoon. The Confederates will be in the low ground here. Here's the location of the German Reformed Church right up here on High Street. And Union prisoners in here said the Confederates down here in Weinbrenner's Run are going to be eating, sleeping, and playing cards. So that'll be mostly the 7th Louisiana and the 8th Louisiana, which is going to be in this area right here. And you can again see another drain here into Weinbrenner's Run. So High Street will be up here on the right. East Cemetery Hill will be over here on the left. Here's that elementary school. So we're mostly facing to the west right now. 6th North Carolina of Avery's brigade is going to start their line in this area. And there's only 3 North Carolina regiments here, the 6th, the 21st, and the 57th. They're going to start stretching towards the Culp Farm. Gordon's Georgia Brigade is going to be sent out on the York Road. Here's the problem. Smith's Confederate Brigade out of Early's division believes the Union's going to attack out there. There's no Confederate cavalry out here to help him out, to let him know. So he's going to keep his whole brigade out here watching to see if the Union is going to be attacking out in this direction. And now Gordon's brigade is going to be ordered out there to help Smith. So again, there were 4 brigades in Early's division. 2 of them are going to be out here to the left. Confederate cavalry under Albert Jenkins are supposed to relieve that infantry on the left. They're supposed to relieve Gordon's and Smith's brigades. And Albert Jenkins is going to be talking with his other officers on Barlow's Knoll. He has a map pulled out, trying to look for the best way to move his soldiers over there, when one of Weidrich's cannon on East Cemetery Hill, they've been practicing their ranges for almost a whole day, are going to hit him from 1.7 miles away. They said we could see some Confederate officers out there on that open knoll. We went ahead and fired on them. It appears their second shot exploded right over Jenkins' head, wounded him, and this means he and his cavalry do not show up on time. They just took Jenkins back, and they kind of forgot about their orders, and that Confederate cavalry will not show up on the Confederate left. 21st North Carolina and the 57th North Carolina, again, stretch out here towards the Culp Farm, and here's Stonebridge over Rock Creek right there. Early's Confederates are facing south, but they must perform a right wheel to hit the hill from the east. So swinging out like this to attack the hill here. And then Rhodes is supposed to attack from the other direction. So if Gordon's brigade had joined the attack, Confederates would have a 3-to-1 advantage in infantry attacking infantry. If Gordon's brigade doesn't join, the Confederates still have a 2-to-1 advantage. So remember, there was an artillery bombardment that lasts for 1.5 to 2 hours preceding Early's division's infantry attack. And here's Benner's Hill. This photograph is taken from the Culp's Hill observation tower. There's Benner's Hill, where Latimer is going to be mortally wounded as he and his 20 guns got smothered by Union artillery fire on the 2nd. After that artillery bombardment, Union soldiers around East Cemetery Hill begin to relax. They think they have repulsed the Confederates. And the Union soldiers start switching positions up here. The 75th Ohio, which was here on the top of the hill, facing north in that direction mostly, is now pulled over here. Here's their monument facing this way to the east. The 17th Connecticut, which was up here where you can see these water tanks, is pulled from facing north to over here. Here's their monument facing to the east. So now you've really messed up this Union line and you've put people in very unfamiliar positions. They are not used to the terrain in front of them. They're not used to the ranges. They're not used to figuring out how to deal with these rises in the ground that all of a sudden are going to be ahead of them. So they're not comfortable with these blind spots. Plus, it's getting dark. And there's no plan of coordination with the artillery on the top of the hill here, with the infantry here on the bottom of the hill. What are we supposed to do if we're attacked? Do we fall straight back up the hill? Should we retreat back up the hill well before the Confederates get started so the artillery have a clear field of fire? What are we supposed to do? So some Union soldiers started to leave Culp's Hill in the afternoon of the second day to back up Union soldiers on the Cemetery Ridge area. So Johnson's Confederate division says, okay, the Union force is weakening. It's time for us to begin to attack Culp's Hill. So then Jubal Early comes riding out of town towards his soldiers, and puffs of dust hit at his horse's feet as Federal sharpshooters aim at him, and he's going to order his infantry to advance to East Cemetery Hill. It's getting dark. Louisianans formed an excellent order and advanced towards the Union lines. Some Confederates already knew they were supposed to be attacked soon because those Confederates under Johnson were already attacking Culp's Hill. Lieutenant Jackson of the 8th Louisiana wrote, "I felt that my doom was sealed. It was with great reluctance that I ordered my men forward." Other Confederates, though, acted differently. James Buell of the 21st North Carolina said after laying all day under that July sun, suffering from the heat, continually annoyed by enemy sharpshooters from the heights, in sheer desperation, we hailed with delight the order to meet again the foe, irregardless of his position in numbers or position. Colonel Jones of the 57th North Carolina remembered, the sun was low when the order came, and when the bugle sounded the advance, the line advanced in beautiful order, and as it pointed to the southwest, there's a glint all along the line of bayonets that was very striking and marked how beautifully that they were aligned. So Union artillery is going to see the Confederate advance and begin to open fire. And this is Stevens Knoll, where Stevens' 5th Maine Battery is located. They're looking out here, and they can see the Confederates coming towards them first. General Hayes from Louisiana said, "My whole line became exposed to a most terrific fire from the enemy's batteries, which would be up here on the hill, as they left this low ground here at Weinbrenner's Run to start advancing towards the hill." Another Louisianan said that General Hayes shouted forward, and on we went over fences, ditches, and through marshy fields. Benjamin Rook of the 153rd Pennsylvania, a prisoner in the German Reformed Church right here, watched the Louisianans advance out of Weinbrenner's Run. He says the Johnnies stooped over till they reached the ridge, and this is going to be a ridge where this school is no longer here. It's called Kefauver Elementary, but this would be one of the ridges that they have to climb over first. Every man took his place in giving the rebel yell, and now you can see the school is gone. By this time, the U.S. grape and canister began to plow gaps through their ranks as they came up over the hill. They closed up like water and advanced in the double quick. To see grape and canister cut gaps through the ranks looks rough. I could see heads, arms, and legs flying amid the dust and the smoke. It reminded me very much of a wagon load of pumpkins drawn up a hill, and the end coming out, and the pumpkins rolling and bounding down the hill. Captain Seymour of Hayes' staff recalled that they cleared the ridge quickly and went down into a valley. That means they're coming up over the ridge here, and this middle school would be close to this valley area as the ground goes lower here. Went to the valley, the Yankee missiles are here, hissing, screaming, and hurling over our heads, but doing very little damage. Captain Ray of Avery 6th North Carolina says the guns were brought to bear on us. The fire is terrific, but our men moved forward very rapidly to the right, having the batteries here on Cemetery Hill as our objective point. And this photograph is taken in the 1950s. Here's that old cyclorama building, and the Howard statue is right there. So the 6th North Carolina is coming across like this. And this is a more recent photograph of this very same area. And here's where the football field is located right here. Colonel Avery, commanding the North Carolina Brigade, and his men are advancing like this across the field, is mortally wounded, struck in the neck by a musket ball in the area of that high school field, which would be about right here, but possibly further to the south. Avery is going to die alone. It's possible in the smoke and the darkness that nobody saw him fall, and he knew that he was dying. In his last moments of consciousness, he takes a pencil and a piece of paper from his pocket, and he scrawls a message to his friend, Major Tate of the 6th North Carolina, saying, "Major, tell my father I died with my face to the enemy, i.e. Avery." So on July 2nd, the 75th Ohio again was shifted from facing north, and they're along the stone wall here, facing to the right or north, to this position facing mostly to the east, facing towards the camera. So a situation has developed here. They've been moved down to the east. Then it's decided that there's a gap over here that needs to be filled by the 17th Connecticut. So they take the 17th Connecticut out of the line here facing north, and as we've talked about before, move them also facing east. So, but now there's been a gap created between the 107th Ohio and the 25th Ohio up here, and there's very few soldiers up here. The 107th Ohio has maybe just over 100 men. 25th Ohio only has about 40 people here on the battle line. That's not a lot to defend your whole northern part of your line. And Colonel Harris, who's in charge of the brigade, admits he was not expecting an assault. He says here, "It was a complete surprise to us. We did not expect this assault as bravely and rapidly made. In fact, we did not expect any assault. We could not have been more surprised if the moving column had raised out of the ground amid the waving timothy grass of the meadow, because, as Colonel Harris did not know, they had raised out of the ground because they had been in Weinbrenner's Run and they had come out of the ground towards them." So on the northern slope, the right of Hayes' brigade charged through knee-high corn over here, with the rebel Yale crashing into the Ohio lines with their bayonets leveled. The right of Hayes' Louisiana brigade struck my brigade, said Colonel Harris, just between the 107th and the 25th Ohio. At that point along the whole line, the fighting was obstinate and bloody. As the attack crumpled the right of the 107th Ohio, that regiment fell back, fighting step by step to a stone fence, which is here again now, but at one time was covered by this metal fence near Weidrich's New York Battery. And this is the marker to the 106th Pennsylvania that is still there on East Cemetery Hill. And that would be located right along here. And there's 106, and you can see the stone wall right there. So the 25th Ohio again had 40 people only facing north, and Hayes' men quickly ran through them. They're going to be moving here now towards Weidrich's guns. Of course, the reservoir did not exist here at the time of the battle. At the 75th Ohio's place in line, overlooking where this football stadium is, one of their sergeants recalled, "They came on us about dark, yelling like demons with fixed bayonets." Confederates came through the gap, facing south, and attacked the remaining Union soldiers on the front, the flank, and the rear. And this shows Brickyard Lane after they've just completed Wainwright Avenue right here. And this is about 1900. And there's the 17th Connecticut Monument. That's the 54th New York Monument. We're standing about right where the 75th Ohio was located. Most of the rest of the Union line begins right here at the east, at the bottom of the east front of East Cemetery Hill, starts to collapse like dominoes from north to south. 17th Connecticut had been recently shifted here, and Lieutenant Peck of the 17th describes their new position. "We had not been here long when firing commenced on our picket line, and our pickets were driven in. Our boys commenced firing when Major Brady, who's in charge of the regiment, orders them to cease firing as we're firing on our own men. The firing ceased for a moment when the boys saw the rebel line approaching and commenced firing again, and the batteries on the hill above us opened on them with grape and canister, which passed over our heads. But Lieutenant Daniels says, no, not all the artillery passed over their heads. In fact, there's going to be a lead wadding from one shot that killed one of our men, which demoralized us worse than the enemy in our front. And shortly afterwards, Major Brady was struck in the shoulder by another piece of shell, and reeling from that injury, Brady, by mistake, injured another Connecticut man with his sword as he was falling. As Connecticut ranks came through the fields here in their front, the Connecticut line settled down, and they do start to stabilize here at the bottom of the hill along Brickyard Lane. The guys from Connecticut did. When the Confederates break through on the east side of the hill, the 17th Connecticut, their monument is here, refused the right part of their line. That means they were facing here to the east, and now the right part of their line, they're going to have go like this, because Confederates are going to be pouring through here, and the guys from Connecticut want to hit the Confederates like this. Because the main part of the breakthrough on the east side of the hill is going to be coming where the 68th and the 54th New York Infantry Regiments were located here on Brickyard Lane. And again, Wainwright Avenue will be here to the right. 54th New York, here's their monument, and there's the 17th Connecticut. At first was facing mostly north and a little bit east, and now they have to fight mostly facing to the east. Their color bearer was among the first to fall. Two other color bearers were rapidly shot, and their line began to collapse. And they're going to start moving up the hill here. Because of terrain, this is the worst part of the hill to defend. That convex slope of the hill is very prominent here. And it's believed that the 54th and here the 68th are the first people to break. Although there are some pockets of resistance, many Union soldiers here begin running up to the top of the hill. And remember, the artillery up here cannot see these infantrymen running towards the hill. And as it gets dark, not knowing if they are friend or foe. So we're going to start moving farther south along this Union line to where the 153rd Pennsylvania and the 41st New York were going to be positioned. Now, a lot of the 41st New York and the 33rd Massachusetts have been sent forward as a skirmish line. You can see them here in this drawing from Harper's Weekly and Alfred Wadd. So Brickyard Lane would be over here, and the Union skirmishers from the 41st New York and probably the 33rd Massachusetts are right here when Avery's guys are attacking and moving towards them. 41st New York skirmish in front of the area that's marked as Minchie Spring, even though some people doubt that this was really Minchie Spring at the time of the battle. And one can easily tell this is a terrible position for infantry. Again, you have these rises in ground in front of you here on Brickyard Lane, which block your view of the enemy. When the 41st New York was sent out as skirmishers, the 153rd Pennsylvania took their place here at the wall. But then the 153rd Pennsylvania, a lot of them were sent out as skirmishers also. And as the 153rd fell back from the advancing Confederates from right to left here, they discovered the 41st New York had already taken position behind the wall here also. So neither group had been here very long. Now they have to get used to these positions here along Brickyard Lane. Leopold von Gilsa, who's brigade commander, ordered his men to cease firing at the Confederates because he thought they were Union skirmishers returning to the lines. His old regiment had been the 41st New York, and he wanted to make sure he did not kill any of the people from his old regiment, not knowing that the 41st New York was already back on the Union line on Brickyard Lane. So officers are trying to convince von Gilsa that the approaching soldiers were Confederates when finally the 153rd opened on the Confederates with a volley. Confederates hit this Union battle line here, and hand-to-hand fighting began. Again, here's the old Brickyard Lane. Here's Wainwright Avenue. This is the monument to the 153rd Pennsylvania. This is a monument to the 41st New York. Confederates are attacking like this, and here's the old position of the 153rd Pennsylvania monument. It's located on the other side of Wainwright Avenue today. Lieutenant Miller said the fight was honest in all of its fierceness, muskets being handled as clubs, rocks torn from the wall in front and thrown, fists and bayonets used, so close was the fighting. I remember distinctly seeing a rebel color bearer with his musket in one hand and a flag in the other, with outspread arms, jump upon the little wall, shouting, "Surrender, you yam Yankees." In an instant, a company A or F man, I cannot tell which, as the smoke was getting very heavy, ran his bayonet through the man's chest and fired at the same time. I can still see in my mind's eye how the shot tore into shreds the back of the man's blouse. When the Confederates broke through, the 41st New York refused the left of their line along a wall, which is very near their monument here. So while the 17th Connecticut is refusing the right of their line, the 41st New York is refusing the left of their line. 33rd Massachusetts, whose monument is right here, belonged to Orland Smith's brigade, which was on the western slopes of Cemetery Hill, but the 33rd Massachusetts had been sent over here to support Stevens Battery here on Stevens Knoll. They're in this monument area where Minchie Spring is now marked, and they're sent out there on the skirmish line, as we talked about before. And as the Confederates approach Brickyard Lane, right here, Confederates will be approaching like this. The scene was one of wild confusion. 33rd Massachusetts opened on the Confederate infantry as they fell back from their skirmish line. And many Confederates kept going, even though they're hit by double charges of canister from Stevens, now Whittier's guns on Stevens Knoll, that 5th Maine battery. So this photograph, Brickyard Lane is right over here in the trees, and the Confederates are attacking right to left. And the 57th North Carolina be on the left of Avery's brigade. They'd be very close to Whittier's guns here. So notice the open ground. The low sections do protect the Confederates somewhat. Remember, it's very smoky and dark. But the 57th North Carolina, their left, is exposed to canister charges from the 5th Maine battery here. Union batteries at the top of East Cemetery Hill are now in great danger of being captured. This is Stevens Knoll, but here's these Union guns that are in danger of being captured as their infantry is retreating up the hill and the Confederates are closely following them. Now, Breck's battery, right over here, he says the Confederate charge on his battery is unsuccessful and was mostly repelled by infantry support in front, so we did not have to use canister out here at all because the infantry, which would be the 41st New York and 153rd Pennsylvania and the 33rd Massachusetts, the infantry kept the Confederates from getting close to Breck's guns. But from Weidrich's battery position, Union artillerymen cannot see the fighting at the base of the hill. It's very dark and smoky. No one's planned what to do if the Union infantry retreats. And now Union soldiers are running out of the smoke, and the Confederates are closely following them. According to one artilleryman, they cannot see 10 yards ahead of them, and these Union guns just start opening up with canister into their own people and into the Confederates. Weidrich and his men, their guns are right here in this 1941 aerial view, are going to stick to the guns as the Confederates hit them from the left side and from the front. And the Confederates are going to capture all the guns. There are actually 4 here during this time and get up to the stone wall right here. On the other side will be Ricketts Battery right here, and the Confederates will start to move on it also. So Weidrich says they seized rammers, handspikes, and threw shot with their hands. Officers used sabers and pistols with remarkable activity and energy. So here's Weidrich's guns as the Confederates are attacking them from left to right up the slope. And then Ricketts Battery, which is on the other side of the stone wall, here's a Weidrich gun. Here's Ricketts Battery, is the next battery attacked by the Confederates. Ricketts' men were told to defend to the last. They also had a hand-to-hand fight here, including with rocks thrown at the Confederates from that stone wall. The North Carolina soldiers at the enemy stood with a tenacity never before displayed by them. Well, at least the Union gunners certainly were here. 3 guns of Ricketts batteries were overwhelmed with the gunners fighting the enemy hand-to-hand, and many of the other 3 guns were still firing. And this is George Newton, a former licensed battlefield guide here at Gettysburg. This water tank to the right of it would be Benner's Hill, about 3/4 of a mile away. Lieutenant Brockaway gave one of the best descriptions of the fighting here. Here's the Confederates coming up the slopes towards Union here on the top. The scene was one of the wildest confusion. Friends and foes were indiscriminately mixed, and our brave men, though outnumbered and without arms by means of handspikes, rammers, stones, etc., made a sturdy resistance, animating each other with shouts and cries, "Conquer, or the soil of our native state perish." At Ricketts' third piece, Lieutenant Brockway joined the fight for another prize. A rebel first lieutenant attempted to seize our battery guidon, but while he grasped it, the guidon's color bearer, James Riggin, rode up with his revolver, shot the officer through the body. In seizing the colors, Riggin wheeled his horse, but at the same moment was shot himself and died soon afterwards. So a sergeant of the Tigers got back here to the limbers, and there he caught Riggin's horse and picked up those fallen colors. While leading back the horse, he was encountered by Sergeant Stratford, who, unable to recognize him in the dark, demanded to know where he was going with that horse. And the rebel brought his musket to his shoulder and demanded that Stratford surrender. At this moment, I walked up, and a glance showed me the true state of affairs. Having no sidearms by me, I picked up a stone and in a most unmilitary manner broke the fellow's head. He tumbled to the ground. That would be taking place right back in here. But Stratford, not knowing the cause, seized his musket and shot him in the abdomen. And then he goes ahead and clubs the musket over the guy, broke the fellow's arms, and the Confederate is asking for quarter, and it is said that he is not believed he lived very long after that. James Buell, the 21st North Carolina, said that the hour was one of horror. Did the incessant roar of cannon, the din of musketry, the glare of bursting shells, making the darkness intermittent, adding awfulness to the scenes, the hoarse shouts of friend and foe, the piteous cries of wounded and dying, one can well imagine that war is heck. While the Confederates are struggling over the guns on the top of East Cemetery Hill, they're expecting assistance from their right front from Rhodes' division and behind them from Gordon's brigade. But Gordon's brigade is not showing up. They are too far away right now. And for the Union, the fighting is dying. And on Cemetery Ridge, General Hancock is there, and he hears the increase in fighting on East Cemetery Hill. So he's going to order Samuel Carroll's brigade to quickly move to the East Cemetery Hill area. And this brigade only numbers 730 men, but they run at the double quick through Evergreen Cemetery towards the sound of the guns, and here are the Confederates capturing the guns with their flags as Carroll's brigade is arriving. Of course, it was much darker then, so I doubt if they could really see this very well. Carroll formed his 3 regiments for a counterattack. One of the regiments actually goes through the cemetery gatehouse here, and they're going to open fire on the Confederates among the guns out here. Hayes' Confederates among the guns think that these newly arriving Union soldiers are Rhodes' Confederate division, who's supposed to be attacking from that direction, and they do not fire on the Union soldiers firing at them. So Carroll's men reload and fire again. The 73rd Pennsylvania, 119th New York, and 58th New York, led in person by Carl Schurz, come through what is now the Soldiers' National Cemetery and line up here to help Carroll's brigade fire on these Confederates among the guns. So here's the Baltimore Pike, and these other Union soldiers are arriving as reinforcements like this. Hayes said after the 3rd volley fired by Carroll's men, Confederates finally could see by the flash of musketry that they were Union soldiers firing at them. And then Carroll's men reload and fire again. That's 4 volleys they get off on the Confederates. Carroll's men start to counterattack before the Confederates can even reply. They rush across the Baltimore Pike into the Confederate line. Remember, the 4th Ohio said that there's engagements of the retreating men among the caissons and the horses up along a slope where maddened gunners of captured batteries were striking the rebels with fists, rammer, and stone, and we moved among them. And there's the 4th Ohio Monument. Bayonets and guns joined the efforts of the heroic gunners in a general melee. We drove the enemy down the hill and captured a number of prisoners. The batteries have been recaptured. And for those of you who have seen it, here's this marker for the 7th West Virginia from Carroll's brigade, marking the end of their charge that evening of July 2nd, when they started driving the Confederates back down to the bottom of the hill. Confederates have to retreat down the hill from left to right and across this open ground to their original positions. So the crisis for the U.S. at East Cemetery Hill was over with. For the Confederates, assistance never comes from Gordon's brigade. They arrive here after Hayes' brigade and Avery's brigade were already retreating, or from Rhodes' division, which was supposed to be attacking over here. Gordon's brigade got a late start. Rhodes is far behind Early's attack. By the time they had cleared the town and started to wheel out here into these open fields, Early has already struck the eastern part of Cemetery Hill. In the Confederate accounts, there's one captain named Gorman in the 2nd North Carolina says, we were not supposed to attack until the moon was already fully up. So this isn't what Early and Johnson's men had been told. They were told to attack as soon as you sense a weakness in the Union lines. And Rhodes is saying, we're not supposed to attack till the moon is up. And in front of us, says Gorman, was a frowning eminence cleared of timber and crowned with artillery thickly parked. Now this photograph, which comes from a Wayside exhibit on Steinway Avenue, shows what's happening during Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. There's a cemetery gatehouse. This is where artillery was at the time of the battle, and now people are standing during the cemetery dedication. This is the Taneytown Road, and there are stone walls on either side of the Taneytown Road, and Union infantry is behind those stone walls, and Rhodes' division are looking at them saying, this does not look good at all. So Rhodes' division stops, and their attack that evening is called off. They are not going to help Early's division. Rhodes probably saved a lot of lives by his decision not making the attack, but the question that comes up is, how come he didn't understand this situation sooner? How come his reconnaissance did not tell him what the situation was out here on the western side of Cemetery Hill, especially when he could have looked at it during the daytime? So the Army of Potomac repulsed every Confederate attack during the 6 hours of fighting on July 2nd. The Confederates are now going to attempt to drive the Union from Gettysburg on July 3rd. So thank you very much for letting me make this presentation to you. I hope it was of some help in your understanding of what happened there on July 2nd. Thank you again.
Thank you, Bobby, so much. Thank you for sharing your time and your expertise. As I listen to you, I keep thinking how lucky your students must be to have you guide them through history with such colorful stories. Thank you to all of you who are in our audience. We hope you will continue to support and watch the Adams County Historical Society, and we welcome any donations to keep our programs running. Thank you.